Space breakthrough may help prevent old age by interfering with the aging process, scientists claim. This has to do with experiments that are going to be carried out in the ISS. An experiment that was conducted in space may one day help interfere, quote unquote, with the aging process that causes us to lose muscle as we get older, according to scientists. NASA's Mark Van Hey recently returned to Earth from the International Space Station, the ISS. He spent a record 355 days in space, and like others before him, he had to be carried out to the Russian Soyuz capsule as a precaution. That's because when astronauts and cosmonauts experience a lack of gravity in space for a prolonged period of time, their muscles are weaker and they can't use them properly. On Earth, humans experience a similar process in old age. Professor Malcolm Jackson, University of Liverpool, explained exclusivity to Science Digest why the micro-age team wants to know if there is a correlation between these two things. He said the situation in space where we lose muscle is actually simpler than what happens in aging. He said on Earth, of course, lots of things happen. People become less mobile, they have nutrition issues, and their joints become inflexible. He says in space we know that we are all exposed to microgravity, so what we're looking for is a parallel change which we see on Earth. The muscles of older people are very complex, but there will be at least one component of that which is also reproduced in space. And a SpaceX rocket blasted off a little while ago from Florida with more than 70 human muscle samples to study the impact of microgravity on their functions. The successful experiment cost about $1.5 million. It returned in January of this year. Now the real work begins for Professor Jackson and his team. They're attempting to identify similarities and try to find ways to interfere in that process. And he says that might be pharmacologically, it might be different types of exercise. One of the things we suspect is that is happening in space is the amount of tension on the muscles changes because there's no stress on the muscles. That is also something we think happens in older people. Meanwhile, humans constantly use certain muscles to support themselves against the force of gravity. These muscles, commonly called anti-gravity muscles, include the calf muscles, the quadriceps, and the muscles in the back and the neck. Now, on the ISS, astronauts complete at least 2 hours of exercises a day to combat the effects of microgravity on their muscles. The team's results could have implications both on Earth and for future generations looking to colonize the cosmos, of course. Professor Jackson added, there is a government challenge that we should be looking for 5 years more of extra healthy life for older people. He says that's one thing we're trying to address. It's likely that it's not just a muscle problem, although muscles are incredibly important at maintaining everyday mobility. It may well be that there are other parallels between what's going on in space and what occurs in other tissues as well. And so the astronauts lose bone mass as well. So we might even identify things about other aspects of aging. It's not just the bone mass, they also have a difference in their brains as well, the brain cells. Now the muscle cells that were sent to the ISS are as small as a grain of rice, and each has been packed into 24 3D printed holders. Once they got to the space station, they were unpacked by German astronaut Matthias Maurer, and during their time in the space station, they were electrically stimulated to induce contractions in the tissue. You know that. That's what we used to do in our biology lab with the frogs, right? We used to do that to induce their jolts on their legs. So that's what they're doing here to these muscles, to stimulate contractions in the tissue, and the scientists will look closely to see what happens. Then they were frozen, sent back to the University of Liverpool, and the results of their experiments will be revealed soon enough after they get tested. So this is what's happening with microgravity on the moon. That's, of course, sending astronauts into the cosmos. It's not just the radiation of the solar and cosmic radiation that has to be taken care of, how to protect astronauts from that. It's also the fact that they don't have the gravity. And obviously, before they have these long trips, they should have gravity, some kind of a centrifuge that creates gravity for them. Okay, this is on Express UK by Callum Hoare. Please leave your comments and thank you for your support. Kindly support my Patreon account. The daily posts are 5 videos daily, and they are totally different from what I have on my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for your support and that you find all my content so interesting. You'll find the Patreon account details in the description box below.